Nobody talks about this. I haven't heard this anywhere. You're kidding me, right? On top of inflation, now we're in a recession. What's gonna happen to my job? Nobody's coming to save you. In today's video, I'm gonna tell you about the #1 thing you should be focused on right now. Stay tuned because I'm also gonna give you a bunch of other tips that I haven't heard anywhere else, and you're gonna hear all the details, and we are starting right now. Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Kristen. I'm a full-time auditor and accountant, and I love all things personal finance, development, and business. Numbers are my jam. My goal is to simplify and empower women and men to own your finances and elevate your life. Well, yesterday's GDP numbers just came out. If you've never heard of GDP, it's gross domestic product. That basically tells us if the economy is doing well or if it's not doing well. And so what happened yesterday is we got Q2 2022's results, and for the second quarter in a row, this number has declined. So what that actually technically means is that we are in a recession. Now, we can't actually officially say that we're in a recession until the National Bureau of Economic Research actually says so. So for right now, we are technically, by definition, in a recession. If you remember the last recession that we had, we were in some pretty painful times. A lot of people had lost their jobs. And if you look at the current news articles coming out right now, you have companies like Redfin already laying off their staff. You have Peloton doing the same thing. Netflix talked about cutting staff, and then you have Facebook, and it just goes on and on and on, especially in the tech sector. There's a lot of reasons to panic, and I don't want you to do that. Here's why I say not to panic. It is going to be temporary. All of the recessions in the past are temporary. We go through this, it's a cycle. It happens every 10 years or so. Let's get you prepared and educated on what you need to do now. The very first thing, and the only thing that I really want everyone to be doing right this minute, is start working on your emergency fund. Emergency fund, emergency fund, emergency fund. I cannot say it enough. One of my gurus in the past was Susie Orman, record player on repeat. That's all she ever said was build an emergency fund. She was saying save at least 8 to 12 months worth of your minimal expenses. So that's things like your rent and your utilities, things to keep the lights on, and that's what you're saving for. If you've ever tried to save even up to $100 or $1,000, you know how hard that is. And I know how hard that is. I'm not saying shoot for the moon here. I'm saying save as much as you possibly can within the time that we're given. We do have a little bit of time, and the emergency fund is designed to protect you. Nobody's coming to save you, in my opinion. It's going to be all on what you can do yourself. In my opinion, we're not going to be getting any more stimulus checks in the mail. Having the ability to rely on yourself is going to help you so much. So the thing that I would recommend starting with is at least getting yourself to $1,000. And this is copied from Dave Ramsey's baby step #1, saving $1,000. And that's gonna help you at least if your car breaks down. It's gonna help you if there's a medical necessity. It's not really gonna protect you if you lose your job, if you're still having to pay mortgage or pay rent. I mean, there's things that you can say and do to extend those payments out and help you get back on your feet. But I don't think we're gonna see the same kind of help that we did in 2020 and 2021. So just gonna put that out there. That is my opinion. That's what my thoughts are on this. But we are in for some rough times ahead, and we just don't know what's gonna happen and whose jobs are gonna be still here at the end of this recession and whose jobs are not. Build up as much as you possibly can for your emergency fund. And what I want you to do is look at your expenses that you're paying for right now. What are your necessities? And then write up how much each of those costs and how much you're paying each month. Set a goal after you've hit that $1,000 baby step. Start to save for that first full month if you possibly can, and don't get frustrated. It's going to take some time. And like I said, we still have some time. Just focus on that as much as you possibly can. Build up as much as you possibly can in the event you lose your job or something happens, say your spouse loses their job and you're in a tight pinch, you have that to draw on while you're getting yourself another job. It really essentially just buys you some time. Now, I was reading some articles in a well-known forum. Someone was giving advice to someone who had recently lost their job and had a lot of credit card debt and had just bought a new car, and they had some emergency funds. And one of the things they recommended was for this person to take their emergency fund and just pay off their credit card. Why? Because then they could use their credit card in the emergency instead of the cash. And I recommended against that. I have seen credit cards cut. I have seen lines closed. It has happened to me. I don't recommend that. If you need to use your credit card and that's all you have, then that's all you have. And I would never say not to use it if that's the only option that you had. But it does put you further into debt. You still have to repay that back. And it's unreliable. They really could cut your lines in a recession. Can happen. It has happened. It does happen. A lot of the experts say save 8 to 12 months worth of your monthly expenses so that you have a longer cushion in case you need it. Right now, we don't have that kind of time, and it takes years to build up that kind of emergency fund. And so now that you know, if you weren't aware, that recessions happen about every decade or so, after this next recession happens, during the good times when the economy is booming, make that a goal to save up as much as you feel comfortable to allow you to sleep peacefully at night. That's what that number should be. So for me and my family, it's about 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund is where we feel comfortable. Cut back where you can, where it's feasible. Go through your list of expenses and kind of assess what you're spending your money on and see where you can cut back. Now that would be the easy thing to do. It's not gonna give you probably a lot to be able to save and put on the side, but hey, you know what? It's something, and I'm proud of you for at least doing that. So don't be discouraged if it's a really low number. Even $10 here and there is gonna help. If you make food from home to take to work, if you eat out less, every little bit is gonna count towards that emergency fund, and I guarantee you are gonna be so at ease every night knowing that you have money set aside in case something happens. But the other thing that I like to recommend, if this is possible for you, is start a side hustle, get a second job, pick up extra jobs, around if you can, Uber Eats or walk dogs or whatever it might be that makes sense for you. You could do jobs on the weekend if you wanted to, just to have some extra money in the bank if crap hits the fan. If you have an emergency fund, then focus on paying down the high interest rate debt that will go even higher. So the debt that you have is going to get even more expensive if it's adjusting. So your home equity line of credit, your personal lines of credit if they adjust, your credit cards. So focus on those. I would start with the house first, the home equity line of credit. If you reasonably think that you may lose your job or your spouse may lose your job, because that puts your home at risk, because your home is collateralizing that debt, your home equity line of credit. So if you stop paying that home equity line of credit and your bank can't work with you any longer and it's been a certain amount of time, they will start the foreclosure process. And I wouldn't want you to lose your home. And like I said, I don't know your personal financial situation. I'm not a financial advisor. That's just what I would do if that were my situation. The second debt that I would focus on paying down is your credit cards. Now, those are the most expensive debt that you can have. They come in handy when you need them. They protect you when you shop online. But otherwise, I just feel like it's highway robbery to have such a high interest rate to pay those cards back. You're really just stealing from your future selves. And so focus on paying those down next. That would be the next thing that I would do. If you don't have an emergency fund, I don't want you to listen to this advice. If you do not have an emergency fund, I would recommend that you pay the minimums on your credit cards starting right now and build up your emergency fund. And then when the economy is back, doing okay and you don't have to worry about losing your job, then start to pay those back down again. A recession doesn't have to be painful, and I'm hoping that what you're hearing so far is really helping you think and plan and prepare and get educated on what is coming up in the future. We could have a very mild recession. We could have a very deep, painful recession. So I just don't know, like I said, and I just want you to be prepared. So if you have an emergency fund and you're set up for that, and you have your debt paid and you're set up for that, then the next thing you can do, and this is just for beginners, then I would recommend to get yourself into the stock market today, right now. Like I said, if you have number 1 done, you have your emergency fund, you have number 2 done, you've paid down all of your debt, you're adjusting debt, I should say, then get yourself into the stock market and be simple. It does not have to be complicated. Find a stock index that mirrors the S&P 500. So it's the top 500 companies in the United States. Historically, you get a return of around 10% over several years, and buy and hold. And that's gonna set you up for major wealth in your future. I personally like VOO, Vanguard 500 Index. Now, a lot of platforms, you have to buy the entire stock. I'm not gonna recommend platforms. Start putting money into your brokerage account or your investment account, depending on who you use, and I don't sponsor any at this time. Like I said, disclaimer, I am not a professional advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. So depending on whatever your personal finances are, you'll want to discuss that with your own personal finance advisor. I'm just telling you what I use and what I like. This is a very simple stock to purchase. There are many out there, and it diversifies your risk because it takes all of the top 500 companies in the United States and it spreads out your money amongst all of those. To give you an idea of a couple of the companies that are involved in this stock, and they're very familiar, you'll recognize all of these: Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, Apple. They're very recognizable companies. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit more comfort to do your research on this stock. And if it makes sense to you, start there. Start putting your money into exchange traded funds and indexes. If you're liking this content so far, let me know by giving me a like. And if you want more content just like this, hit the subscribe button. Building up your food storage, I haven't really seen talked about anywhere else. So my family, when I was growing up, we always had food storage. It's just the way it was. And so as I got older, I had all these canned goods in my house that I never ate and I never used, and it always went bad. So I actually stopped doing food storage for a while, and I'm picking it back up again. I'm not an expert with food storage, by the way, but something that I've learned is, because I don't like waste, buy the things that you eat already, but buy them in shelf-stable form. Buy the bags of rice, buy spaghetti and pasta sauce, and things that you already eat already, but that are gonna last you for a while, so you can rotate them through your normal food consumption. The other thing that's gonna really help, and because we are in an inflationary environment where the cost of everything is just outrageous and skyrocketing, get frozen food. Get frozen vegetables, for example. At my grocery store, I can get a pack of broccoli for like $1. And so I buy a bunch of those and they sit in my freezer, and I just rotate them out. As I use one, I buy another one, and I have a few of them at least. And so keep that in mind if you are struggling with your finances, is that instead of buying fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, the frozen variety works just as well, and it's just as healthy, and it's affordable. When you go to the grocery store, I'm not talking about hoarding. Great toilet paper hoard. I remember those days, and there was about 2 months where we couldn't find toilet paper at all. And luckily we had bought in bulk and didn't need to buy any more toilet paper. But guys, that was pretty scary, and I wouldn't want to live through that again. So let me make that very clear. I don't want you to go to the store and start panic buying things because Kristen said so. Please don't do that. There's no need for that. What I am saying though is that every time you go grocery shopping, buy one more thing that you need. Buy one more canned good that you'll use. Buy one more pasta and pasta sauce. Buy one more bag of rice. Buy one more pack of diapers or pet food, things like that. So just consider that as we're going into a recession where it's typical for more job losses to happen and we already have supply chain issues. You may want to be stocked up and better prepared. My husband and I did not have to panic when everybody else was out panicking. We still went to the grocery store as normal. So that's the place that I want you to also be at, and hopefully this helps. This other recommendation that I have, something that I don't ever hear about either. When people talk about diversification, again, diversification, there's that word, and it's to protect yourself, right? You don't want all of your eggs in one basket, because what if that basket goes down and everything cracks? And that's exactly the same kind of mindset that I want you to start thinking about when it comes to your necessities. So if you have a main grocery store that you typically use and everything is shipped in and there's a supply chain breakdown, where else could you go to get food? Do you have farmers markets? Do you have a local butcher shop? Do you have a mom and pop shop somewhere that does not depend on the same supply chain that might be breaking down across the US? And just thinking about the cost of gas prices nowadays, do you maybe need to diversify with your transportation? Do you need to look at getting a bicycle? Do you have a pair of old rollerblades that you could use? I think I have some. A skateboard, or I don't know, a scooter. And I'm laughing because it sounds silly, but you know, when things happen, and they do happen, it's nice to be able to put on your walking shoes and just be able to pull your cart and go to the grocery store and not even have to worry about driving if it came down to that. Do the same thing with, for example, baby diapers. Can you get those cloth diapers and maybe have a couple of them on hand in case diapers are gone and you weren't able to stock up in time, if that ever happens? And that's the whole thing with this, is that it's not when, it's an if, because I don't know if that's going to happen. We've already seen it happen multiple times. So my recommendations are just based on what I've seen and what I've experienced recently, and not saying that it couldn't happen again. I think it's a good idea to diversify. If we're being told to diversify our assets and our investments, then why not diversify all the other necessities that we need in life? Another tip that I thought of is, why not start a garden? That's something that's been on my mind lately, and my neighbors have a garden and we don't have one yet. But you could start propagating your plants over the winter, and by the time it's springtime, you could have a brand new crop, and that'll reduce your need to go to the grocery store. Like I said, the whole thing is just in case things happen, it's best to be reliant on yourselves as much as possible. Look around. What do you have available to you? You have so many resources, and I think sometimes just being aware of diversifying will open up your eyes to seeing other opportunities that you could take advantage of if you needed to. Earlier in this video, I talked about possibly starting a side hustle to help you build up your emergency fund. If you haven't seen this video, I've already talked about how to start a side business or start a side hustle while you're working full-time. You can check that out here. Thank you so much for your support. It means so much to me. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. There's my little buddy. There he is. He's doing cat things. Oh. Startified